Let's start creating our canvas and the background. So what I'm going to do is select the entire canvas here with Control Command A and go to Edit, Copy Merged. That way the dimensions of my canvas will be recorded. And now when I press Control Command N, it's going to create the same canvas. I'm going to drop the resolution down to 72 because I'm making just a tutorial and I don't need this that big. 300 was if I want to print this and I want to have the proper resolution. And I'm also going to make this a little smaller. Let's see, changing the width, the height, sorry, to 3000. Yeah, I'm going to use this canvas size, 2200 by 3000. And I'm going to click OK. So this will be my canvas, my base canvas. So we're going to start by creating the background. I'll use several images. I'm going to press Shift Command D. This is a custom preset, custom shortcut, sorry, that I created to place my elements here. And you can see the image does not fit, but it doesn't really matter. You just stretch it and that's it. We're going to blur this, so anyway, it's not going to be visible. So this is the first image that we're going to use. And we're going to use this image and then we're going to put two more on top. But first let's blur this. I'm going to filter, blur gallery and fill blur. If you want to use the Gaussian blur, just go ahead and do it. I feel like the fill blur it gives a better quality. Also, it takes longer to apply, but anyways. On the original, I used 66 pixels, but you can see it's too much because I made the canvas smaller and I also have to reduce the amount of blur that I apply. More or less 30 for this canvas size. You still want to see the edges there on the mountain, so about 30 for this will be okay. Anyways, we're gonna blur this again after we add the two other photographs. So that's that. Let's add the other two images. So I'm gonna place again, and I'm gonna start with this one. I'll choose place. And I'm going to create a layer mask. We're going to use lots of layer masks. And with just a soft brush, a round soft brush, paint with black. And remove, we don't need the sky. Actually, let's try and use the gradient because it's a lot quicker. So get the gradient tool, make sure you have black to white. And on this layer mask, with the layer mask selected, just create a mask like that. But let's do it the other way. Like so, and raise this about there, something like that. And we also we'll have to remove the background as well, but actually the bottom image is just for the sky, but we're gonna blend the three images and they kind of look different. So yeah, place again, and I'm gonna use this one for the foreground, for the ground actually, and I'm gonna make it just a little bigger. We'll see, we're going to change the sizes, create a new layer mask, and again, create something like this. Now I have to make this just a little bigger, not too much, otherwise the rocks will be too big, and I don't want that. Something like that. Try to create something a little natural as you can in terms of where the horizon is. And you don't need perfect blending, as I said, because we're going to blur this again, but try to get the best you can. I'm going to use the brush with an opacity and 50 and float 20 and try to mask this like that. And probably on this other image of the mountains, I'm going to get rid of the sky there. Always use really soft brushes when you do this kind of blendings between when you create backgrounds, okay, because you need really soft transitions. You can see that here we have this mountain. If it annoys you and if you don't like how that looks, you can let's see which image is on top. This one, you can use the brush here too. Let's use a bigger opacity and flow of 60 and 80, and with the brush tool just cover that up, and that's it. Okay, now we have the background, really simple. If it doesn't look like this, just don't worry, do your best, and that's it. Now I'm going to group these two images with Control Command G, and I'm going to name this BG2. And now I'm gonna add some adjustment layers on it. Sometimes when I make this kind of things, maybe you're wondering why you're not converting this into a smart object. Well, just basically because when I make the tutorials, I want to be able to just expand this and just look what I did without having to open smart objects. But you can do it. You can select both images, right click and choose convert to smart objects, to smart object, and that's it. Or you can even merge the whole image if you're happy with what you got. Okay, so next we're gonna add an adjustment layer, but in this case, yeah, I remember why I created the group. Not only because of that, but I also want to apply some adjustments only to these two images, not to the sky. So the first adjustment that I'm gonna add is a color lookup, and now I'm gonna clip this color lookup. I'm gonna clip it to the group. If you cannot do this, if you cannot clip adjustment to groups, what you can do is merge this group or convert it into a smart object. Right click on it and convert into smart object, but only the group. And now it looks like a normal layer, and you should be able to create a clipping mask of a color lookup onto a normal layer. And here I'm gonna use one of my custom LUT presets that I created on a pack that's called Portrait Awesome. And you have it on the stock folder. Just click here, load 3D LUT. And here in the stock folder, you will see a file called psdbox p824.cube. Open that and you have it. And all you need to do now is change the table order to RGB. And you can see how it changes. Okay, so put both data order and table order to RGB. You can try different combinations to see different colors, but I had both of them on RGB and click OK. And next I added a curves adjustment, also clipped to the group, and just by eye, just darken the whole thing a little bit, just a couple of points like so, to make everything look a little darker. Okay, now we're done with the background, and what we need to do now is merge these layers. So Shift Option Command E to merge everything, and we're gonna turn this into a smart object. That's my way of working. Now, if you feel like you don't need these layers anymore, you can delete them. My way of working is not like that. I always leave everything here. Maybe I would just group that and hide it, so the performance of Photoshop improves, because if you have a slow computer or if you're working with a really huge canvas, it's difficult to just have everything visible and have duplicated things. Sometimes it can go slow, so you can delete it or just group it and hide it. It's really up to you. So next, what I did is I went to filter, blur gallery, and I used the tilt shift blur, and I wanted to blur the background a little more than the foreground. So you can see here we have two sliders, and the blur occurs where this solid lines up and down. Okay, so this dotted line here is where the transition ends, and right now I'm gonna put this to 15. That's okay, and that means that from this line on we have a transition, and everything that is beyond this line has the 15%, the 15 pixels of blur, and in between these two lines we have the transition. Actually, you can see this. If I move this, you can see that we have no blur here, and it gradually starts to blur the image until we get here. We can change the transition to something like that, but most importantly, we want to drop this down like so to about there. Actually, we can combine this. So if I just want to have a gradient blur, gradient blur, I should say maybe, I will do something like this. But imagine I want to add some blur here, but not 15%, not 15 pixels. Maybe I want to add less. I'm going to add a distortion of about 15% as well. I can also activate the fill blur. The fill blur will add a generic blur to the whole image. I'm going to deactivate the tilt shift just so you can see. So this blurs the whole image. That's why I used both, because I just wanted to have a generic blur of, let's say, 10 pixels only for this part over here, or yeah, 10 is okay. And then with the not the iris blur, with the tilt shift, I will have no blur here, because you can see that the bottom part is here, so no blur, because it starts to blur from here to here. So on the bottom I have no effect on the tilt shift, but here I have 15% and actually lower it to just 12 because I already have the 15 pixels on the fill blur. So basically blur the whole image and then add the gradient blur with a bigger amount on the top part. That's basically what I did. I hope you understand it, and click OK. If you don't understand it, just apply some blur to the image and that's it. It really doesn't, it's not that critical, okay? So we have the background ready. The next thing we want to do is add the model. But before we do that, I want to show you something. I want to show you how I added debris on the background over there. And I created a brush myself, and I'm going to create a new document. And I'm going to use, I don't know, maybe 500 pixels by 500. It's going to create a white document, and I'm going to get the lasso tool. Now, make sure you have the foreground color to black and start creating random stuff and fill it with black with option backspace, different sizes. Make sure you have the feather set to 0. You don't want to have feather on this. Now everything that is black will be our brush. I'm going to turn this into a custom brush. So I'm going to go to edit and choose define brush preset. If this is grayed out, it may be because your canvas is bigger than 5000 pixels. So check that. Also check that you're in RGB 8 bits. If you're in some other weird mode, it might not be. You will maybe have this grayed out. So I'm going to choose define brush preset. And I'm going to name it debris and press enter, and now you can see that I have the brush here. I can paint with it. Okay, let's close this and go back to our document. The brush is created. I'm going to create a new layer and I'm going to name this debris. Okay, make sure my brush is 100% opacity and flow. You can paint with this like so, but it's kind of boring and very regular. So what we can do is open the brush settings. You can go to window and choose brush settings. Brush settings over here. I usually have it on the second dock, and we want to increase the spacing. Also, I'm going to activate shape dynamics, and I'm going to change the angle so that we have random rotation. You can see that now it looks a little different. Also, I want to change the size jitter. This will create randomly sized pieces of debris, and I will increase the brush size on the brush tip shape. I'm going to increase this a little more. Oops, no, that's not. Okay, from here, like so. And what else? I'm going to activate scattering, and I'm going to scatter this so that it looks very random. Now, what I'm going to do is on this new layer, I'm going to paint with black just to fill this randomly with some debris, like so. Don't do something like this. I think that would be too much. So just a few ones here and there. And now we're gonna go to the fill blur again. To the blur gallery again. So go to filter, blur gallery, and this time I'm gonna use spin blur. If you're using a really old version of Photoshop and you don't have the spin blur here, I'm gonna show you an alternative. But for now, just let me finish this. I'm gonna make this circle really big. So everything that will be inside of the circle will be blurred. And I'm gonna expand this like so. Now you'll see that inside we have 4 small dots. This indicates the transition area. So if I'm gonna do something like this, you will see that everything that goes outside of this dots here is not going to be affected, or is going to be less affected by the blur. So I'm going to leave it pretty big like so. Now one other thing we want to change is the angle. With just 2% is enough. We just want to create a sort of a bit of motion, but not that much. 2 or 3%. Let's try it with 3%. It will be enough for us. This other diamond looking shape is to let's see if I can click it. I don't know if this is for sizing. I think this is to change the shape from round to something a bit more square. I'm not really sure, but anyways, let's see if we can put 2.5. Yeah, it accepts decimals. So about 2 or 3%, not more than that, and click OK. You will see that it takes a little while to apply it, so I'm gonna fast forward. So that's how I created those flying debris, and I think it looks pretty nice. You can try blend modes. For example, you can see that if you leave some of them outside that circle, outside of those dots, it looks kind of weird. So I'm going to delete those because I don't like them. Yeah, okay. You can try blend modes, as I said, and there's one as well. For example, let's try overlay. That way they get a bit of color from the background and looks a little more integrated into the background, I guess. Also, if you think they are too sharp, you can apply a regular Gaussian blur to them of about 1 or 2 pixels or even more. You can still tell that they are rotating and you have this sense of motion on it. And it serves as a compositional element because it kind of focuses everything in here, creates a framing for the model that we're going to add next. So let's do that. Let's add the model. I'm going to press Shift Command D. Remember, this is a custom keyboard shortcut. If you press it, nothing will happen on your computer, or probably something else is going to happen. Basically, what I did is I created a shortcut for place embedded, so that way I don't have to open the image on the document and drag it in there. So it's a really quick way of doing it. This is the model that I used. I think I got it from 123rf.com or Deposit Photos. I don't remember right now, but one of those websites. And sometimes I don't know what happens, but you can see that it's gonna add it really a really small size. I don't know why, and it's gonna tell me that it's more than 100%. Actually, it's not. This image is pretty big, a lot bigger than my canvas. So, but for some reason, when you add them as a smart object, it's gonna add them smaller than the original. Maybe it's because of the resolution. I'm not really sure. So I'm gonna place her right over there. Let me take a look at the original and see more or less how tall she is. So I have a bit of a gap in there, and here I don't have that. So I'm gonna make her smaller. About there. Anyway, it's a smart object, so okay, now I have to mask this, and I already have the mask. I'm not gonna spend time cropping this from the background, and because I'm a good guy, I'm gonna give you the mask for it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna double click here to open this on a new document because it's a smart object, and now it's gonna open it on a different document at full size. You can see it's quite big, and that's nice. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the layer mask that I already have created. So I'm gonna create the layer mask here. It's gonna create an empty layer mask. Now I'm gonna go to Open, Command O. This time I'm not gonna place the image because I wanna open it on a different document. So inside the stock folder, you will see an image called Model Mask. This is the mask that I saved. I created it using several selection tools. All the selections that you see here, I made by hand. You can see they're not perfectly done. Now I see them. But anyways, now with this image opened, I'm gonna press Ctrl Command A to select entire canvas, Ctrl C, go to my other image, and now I have to place this inside of this layer mask. And how do we do that? Well, first we have to activate this on the canvas, on the full screen, on the canvas. So for that, you press Alt and click, or Option click. This will reveal the mask on the canvas. So right now it's white because I have nothing there, but now I'm gonna paste that image in here. And it's exactly the same size because that's how I saved the image. Now, this is now became my layer mask, and you can see, you can refine it. You can see I have left some bad masking here. I really hate masking. I don't know about you, but I really hate it. I'm becoming more and more lazy with the in time, and I'm really lazy creating good layer masks. And now I'm using the okay. Anyways, you can leave it like this, or just retouch it if you want. Now, to exit the full screen mask, Option click again on the layer mask, and voila, we have our model masked, and we saved 15 minutes of selections. You can see that around the hair I left this area. This is because we're going to use the blend mode to create the selection. Now, since this is a smart object, I can simply press Ctrl Command S, or Control S to save the image, and it's not gonna save it. For some reason, I don't know why it happens. It unlinked the image from my original document, from this one, and it's not gonna update it here. So what I'm gonna do is delete this and move the whole thing on my canvas. It's gonna move it on full size. So what we have to do, make sure you have the mask linked to the layer, select the move tool, and click here on the canvas and just drag it to your other tab and let go. It's gonna bring it here on full size. So right click and choose convert to smart object, and now I have to scale it back down. The reason why I converted this into a smart object before scaling it down is because I want to preserve the editing capabilities. So if I want now, I can double click and it's going to open it on a different document again, but this time as a PSB. Okay, so I'm going to close this. I no longer need it because I have it here. Let's name this model and let's group it. Let's group her. Control G and name this model again, because in here we're going to add several layers. Okay, so this concludes the making of the background and the model. Next, we're gonna fix the hair. So on the next video, I'm gonna show you how to fix the hair and remove that part of the background while keeping the flying hairs. Great, let's deal with the hair and add the horns here. So first, we want to create a copy of the model. For that, I'm gonna press Option and click drag, or Alt click and drag to create a copy. And let's name this hair. Now we no longer need the smart object, so I'm going to right click and choose convert to not convert to smart object, rasterize layer. This will remove the extra info that we have about the size and everything, because we don't need it anymore. And we're going to turn this into we're going to change the blend mode to screen. And if I deactivate the model layer, you can see that it kind of becomes transparent. But in order to make sure that they don't move, I'm going to select both of them and right click and choose link layers right over there. Okay, now I will deactivate the model layer for a second because I want to make sure that I have to make some changes here. Okay, I want to see the hair, but I don't want to see the background there. So I'm going to use levels for that. I'm going to press Ctrl Command L. And I want to make the background even darker. The reason why you see this here is because it's not completely dark. So what you need to do is get this slider and move it towards the right. And you can see how it became pretty much almost invisible. Well, you have to move it until it becomes invisible. Make sure you don't do something like this because you start to lose the finest hairs. It's better to do something like this, and then with the soft brush, with a really gentle brushing, you can actually, I'm gonna leave this on like so on purpose. I don't know if you can see it on the video, but you can still see a fine line over here. I'm gonna click OK, and now I'm gonna get in this case I'm gonna get the eraser. I'm not even gonna create a layer mask, and with an opacity of 50 and flow 30, I'm gonna paint, just gently paint on that line to make sure I remove it, but just the line. I don't care about the rest of it because the transition is so soft that you cannot tell. The tones are really close to being a match, so just by deleting that edge, it's enough. So you don't have to delete everything until you get to touch the hair. Okay, great. Now I have the hair ready. I'm gonna reactivate the model, and I have to create a layer mask for the model now, because now I'm gonna paint with the brush and remove this. I will use the same opacity and flow, 50 and 30, and paint with black over this layer mask. I have the eraser. First select the brush. I'm gonna use a normal brush, hardness 0, and opacity 50 and flow 30. If you wonder how I changed this without touching the sliders here, or I'm doing it with the keyboard, just pressing 5 on the keyboard. I mentioned this in a lot of my tutorials. You're gonna change the opacity, and if you press on a Mac, Shift 5 or Shift 3 is going to change the flow, and in Windows you have to press Alt and the number that you want in order to change the flow. But in my experience, this only works with the numbers that are on the top row of the keyboard, not the numeric keypad. at least for the flow. I don't know why it's not working in Windows. It's not the same as in Mac. I'm gonna increase the opacity to 80 and the flow to 60 because it's going a little slow. And actually, I should have painted that back in manually. But anyways, I'm gonna leave it like that for the tutorial. Maybe I'm gonna cover it with something and just paint with this. Actually, using a bigger brush and really soft, you get better results. Because you don't want to do something like this. Well, actually, in this case, it's not that visible, but using a really soft brush is going to give you better results. Because you're not painting with the full strength of the brush, to say it that way. Oops, that's not a good masking over there. We're going to have to fix it. And here a little more. And using a low opacity and flow, it's going to give you more control, so you can just give several passes just on the areas where you need it. Here we have to do this manually, so I'm gonna control click the hair layer, or actually this one, it doesn't really matter. Get the brush, and now I'm gonna paint with white here. I have the selection which restricts my actions right over there, and here I'm gonna have to make the brush really small and paint carefully like so. Okay, I think that's good enough. Just pay attention on the details. For example, see here, you can see the mask, how I did this. Probably the reason why I forgot to remove that, it's because I had something black there and it wouldn't allow me to see the whole thing, but we can fix everything in Photoshop. Just before uploading your artwork to some platform, or selling it or whatever, or showing it to your client or something, just make a good take a good look at it and watch for details like this, because it's not a good thing to have things like this. Okay, now I have the hair created. Let's add the horns there. So again, I'm going to press Shift Command D, or Shift Command D, and open this image. I'm gonna place it in here, and this is really easy to extract. I use the Magic Wand tool, and just click on the white area. I have the contiguous option checked, tolerance to 24, and 3x3 average, and I just clicked once on the white space, and I'm gonna create the layer mask. Of course, I have to invert it with Control Command I. And now I'm going to refine the mask, right click on it and choose Refine Mask, because I want to soften just a little bit the edges. And usually when I do this, I shift the edge between 10 and 20%, increase the feather a little bit. You can start to see this glow around, increase it just a little more. The amounts that you see here, I'm inputting here, really depend on your image, so don't take this as a general rule. And now I'm gonna shift the edge a little more and increase the contrast, and you'll start to see that glow disappears. Okay, and I think they're smooth enough, actually a little sharper. I don't want to have something really sharp like this. It's not realistic. Yeah, that looks good. I'm gonna click OK. Let me check my output, layer mask. Okay, and I have to brush around the edges. You don't see them on the video because they're really tiny, but the edge are there. Sometimes when you change zoom levels, you will see some weird lines. Yeah, here you can see it. That's because of the edges. When you create masks like this, sometimes the edges, 1 or 2 pixels of the edge are not masked. Okay. Now I'm gonna delete this because I no longer need it. And now I will move this and cover this existing horns over there. Now, this is a smart object, so I can make the whole thing a little bigger. Like that. I'm gonna put them there, and I'm gonna finish masking this. And we'll see if we have to change the size or the position. Now, when I made this manipulation actually on a Windows, on a computer, and I had a really hard time creating the mask here. You will see that I don't think I'm gonna modify it any further, but the mask is horrible. That's because I didn't have my graphics tablet. Doing it with a mouse, you need a lot more patience than with the graphics tablet. At least maybe because I got used to using one. And yeah, make sure we delete this entirely. Let me make sure that I don't have the pen pressure on because I don't need it. In order to blend this a little better, you can use hair brushes if you have. I don't have any. So what I could do is use just a simple regular brush like this and just paint with black and see what we get. Not a good option. Why it's not a good option? Because we reveal this thing which is also black and we want to paint with this color of the hair. Since I have the graphics tablet, what I can do is create a custom brush right here, activate the transfer option. Leave the jitter over there. Pen pressure, yeah. For some reason, it's not working. And the shape dynamics on pen pressure. Oh yeah, okay, now. And just sample a color from there and start painting. Oops, but create a new layer. As I said, sample and just paint like that, just covering part of those horns to make them look a little more realistic. Now, if you don't have a graphics tablet, it's going to create really regular lines and it's not going to look that natural. So if you don't have one, just try and find some hair brushes or something and try doing it that way. I'm going to do it with my graphics tablet because I can change the opacity and the size of this with how hard I press on the pen. So I'm going to fast forward a bit here until I'm finished with this, and then we can continue. Okay, I'm going to leave it like this. I'm not going to continue with it. It looks better than this one, I think, in my opinion. I'm gonna name this hair, and I'm gonna leave it there. If you cannot create this, don't worry. Just try your best and blend this the best you can, and that's it. One thing we want to do is make sure that the horns are going. At least I don't know. That's my preference is to make them look that they are behind the dress. So what I did is I control clicked the woman, and on this layer mask of the horns, I painted this with black with a regular brush to hide those horns, and here as well. Okay, and you can see that now they look like they're going behind this part of the dress. Okay. Now, we still have to add styles to this, but for now, we are good to go. So the next thing I want to do is add the skull over here. So that's what we're going to do next. Now, let's add the skull image in here. Okay, let's place that. I'm going to put it on top of everything. Still inside the model, yeah. But we're going to group it. And inside, so it's inside the model group, but we're going to group this. For some reason not working. Control G, okay. Skull. Okay, now this is a 3D render that I rendered in Blender. I downloaded this from sketchfab.com. It's a website where I usually download this kind of models. So let's make this smaller. I guess the best size would be to have this more or less the same size as her face. Yeah, about that big, just a little bigger. And let's place it right over there maybe, and probably rotate it a bit, like so. And now I have to create a layer mask for this because we need to make it look like it's inside her hand. So I'm gonna drop the opacity a little bit so I can see what I'm doing, so I can see the fingers through the skull itself. I'm gonna select the layer mask, get the brush tool, opacity and flow 100%, hardness about 70%, that's okay. And I'm gonna deactivate the transfer because I don't need it for this. And also make sure you decrease a little bit the spacing so you have a more smoother stroke, and start painting on this. Now there are some techniques that you can use. One of them would be to mask like this a lot more than you need, and then go with the opacity back to 100% and repaint back with white. Paint with white on this layer mask and carefully start to paint like this. Oops. Command Z, and start to paint back like so. Okay, the mask is done. Not really that difficult. And probably I'm gonna unlink the mask and probably drag this a little lower on her hand like so. And I'm gonna paint this part out. Okay, now we have the skull, and what we need to do next is add some shadows. I'm gonna create a new layer on top. I'm gonna clip it. I'm gonna name this skull shadow. Great, now I'm gonna get the brush tool, and I'm not gonna paint a black shadow because shadows are not black all the time. They're not always black because they get the color of the object they're on. So I'm gonna paint something a little yellow, but before I do that, I want to desaturate a little bit this skull, and also I'm gonna sharpen it. I'm gonna go to filter, sharpen, and use unsharp mask. Actually, I'm gonna watch this at 100%. When you sharpen or remove noise, always look at the image at the actual size at 100%. Otherwise, you will not be able to judge the amount of sharpness or noise that you've reduced. Like so. I don't know if you can see it on the video, but it gets a lot more definition. It was needed. And now I'm going to press Ctrl Command U. Remember, this is a smart object, so all of these adjustments will be saved as smart filters. And I'm going to drop the saturation a bit to about -30. And now I'm going to go back to my shadow layer and sample this dark tone from there. And I'm going to set the blend mode to soft light. Let's see if that works. And if it doesn't work, we're going to change it to some other blend mode. I'm going to drop the opacity to 40 and the flow to 50 maybe. And let's see how that works. I like to work with this with this low values, with these low opacities, and you can see how the shadow is created. Now I can see right now that this blend mode is not good. I'm gonna try and use normal. Not good. I'm gonna delete it and use something really dark and then use something brighter. Still a really dark brown tone, just to create this shadow that is where the hand touches the bone, right over there. Remember that I also have the pen brush. No, I don't have it. Let's activate that. I was wondering why it wasn't working that weird. For some reason, it's not. Oh yeah, minimum. Okay, I had the minimum set to maximum. That's why I couldn't see the transition. That was weird. So just paint over there like so. This is just the first shadow. It's a harder. It's still a soft shadow, but it's a little harder. Just where the hand touches the bone. Now here I'm gonna add some natural shadow from the hand itself, and here's some other shadow, and in here as well. Not the best in the world, but I think it's still usable. This one would be even darker. Okay, for the tutorial is good enough. I just wanted to show the technique of painting the shadow. If you need, and I think we do need, use some levels to brighten this up. So I'm gonna again select the skull, press Ctrl+Command+L, just to make this a little brighter and more contrasty. Yeah, it looks better. When you increase the contrast like this, you also gain saturation. So if it becomes too saturated again, go back to that hue saturation and drop it down again. I'm going to show you the before and after. I think it looks a lot better now. As I said, if it becomes too saturated again, just expand this and you'll see these two circles indicate that we have smart filters, and just double click on the hue saturation again. It's gonna warn you that the rest of the adjustments will be removed until you do this. So drop it back to whatever you need, and that's it. Okay, I think we're done with it. So what else we could do? The foreground, we're gonna do it a little later on. Yeah, that's good. That's with the we're done with the skull. Next, I'm gonna show you how I edit the foreground, and then we're gonna create the light on the eyes, and then we're gonna continue creating the lights here on the horns as well. So let's create the foreground with those rocks here on the foreground. Let's create the foreground. Here, I didn't like how this looked, and I didn't just wanted to leave it like so. So what I did is I added these are actually rocks, and you can see them right over here as well. No, you cannot see them here because it's this. I made that on post-production, but we're gonna add this here now. So what I did is I'm gonna go on fast forward. I'm just gonna show you how I added one or two because it's a really repetitive process. I'm gonna open an image of the rocks. Actually, you have two of them here. You can use both of them so that you have some variation. I'm gonna start with this one. And first thing first, we have to remove the background as soon as my hardware reacts. So get the magic wand and just click on the background and remove it. Create an inverted layer mask with Alt click. And I'm also gonna select and mask because I want to remove that edge, feather, and contrast. Oops, this works really slow. Okay, layer mask, click OK, and we refined the mask. And right click and apply it. We no longer need it. Now, what I'm going to do is select one of the rocks with the lasso tool, like this. Control C, go to my other document, and I'm going to paste this on top of everything. Create a new layer, group it, and let's name this foreground. And we're gonna paste that in there. You can see it's really huge, especially for this canvas size. So we have to make this pretty small. I'm gonna make it this big, and then I'm gonna create a copy of it, which I'm gonna make smaller. We're gonna add some blur to this, and they will have different levels of blur. The bigger ones will have more blur, and the smaller ones will have less blur. And also I'm gonna rotate this like so. Let me get another one and copy it just the same. Control C, Control V, all of them inside of this foreground group. And the reason why we have them all inside a group is because we're going to add some styles to this a little later on. So what I'm going to do now is just copy and paste these rocks here, spin them around and just placing them around my model here, and create a sort of a floating barrier of rocks and move them around here. Oops, this one has to go underneath, like so. And I'm going to open that other image again, this one, and continue doing this. I'm going to fast forward just so you can see what I do, but it's a really repetitive process and really time consuming, so I'm not going to spend time showing you how to do this. So we'll see you when I'm done. Okay, so now we're done creating these rocks around here. Now we have to blur them. So I'm gonna select the ones that are bigger here on the bottom and go to filter. I'm gonna use plain old Gaussian blur. This will create more depth on our image, about 17 pixels for this one. Filter, blur, and choose Gaussian blur again. This one a little more. Oh, not that much. Now this one I'm gonna apply slightly less blur. Oops, I chose fill blur. Anyways, it's gonna work the same, just 10 pixels. Well, just a little more. So just keep blurring this using different amounts of blur, so you create some sense of depth of field. Obviously, the ones that are smaller, you apply less blur because they will not look that good, and you'll create sort of a weird thing. So as you go closer to her, just use less blur, and also, as I said, depending on the size. And we're done. Now I'm seeing something here. Remember that I told you about those lines that we see here? Now I can see one over here from the skull. So I'm gonna make sure I remove that. What I want to do is edit all of them at the same time. So I'm gonna double click. I want to make them darker so that they don't look as obvious. And I'm gonna add a color overlay, and I'm gonna set this to multiply. Now it's too blue and too bright, so let's create something like this. Yeah, you can use the same color value that I have here. I'm gonna click OK, and the opacity to about 75. Remember, this will be here. Let me show you here on the foreground. They will they just look as something to fill the scene. And I also added some other elements. I'm gonna close this to images, and I added. Actually, I'm going to open this into two separate documents. These two files. Just get the magic wand tool and click on the white background to select it. And I'm going to remove it. Alt click, apply layer mask. Now it's not the best selection in the world. I'm just going to go quick here because let's try and put them inside of this foreground layer. It looks good, but actually I'm going to put them outside just because on the foreground group I'm going to apply a layer style. And I'm going to leave this right over here on the edge. Maybe flip it horizontally. And a little smaller. This will also be blurred. So put it right over there and get the other one and do the same, shift click. This time I'm gonna deactivate contiguous and probably drop the tolerance just because I want to make sure I don't select anything inside of there, just the white background. Alt click the layer mask, apply layer mask, Control X, and just paste it here on a new layer. I want to make it smaller again, and let me try and flip it horizontally and see how that looks. Yeah, I think this size would be okay. This one, the first one, probably I'm gonna move it right over there and make it just a tiny little smaller. And we're good to go. Now I have to blur this and add the same effect we added on the foreground. So I'm gonna go to filter, blur gallery. I'm gonna use the filled blur again. This one, I'm gonna blur them just a little more than the rocks. 15 is okay for this canvas size. And do the same with that other one, filter, blur gallery, reapply the filter again. And that's it. And now just, actually I'm gonna merge them with Control Command E so that I have them on a single layer and I can apply one effect to both of them. You can also use smart objects if you want to. I'm gonna set this to color overlay just like before, but not that dark. I'm gonna use something a little more bluish like that, and click OK. They kind of merge into those rocks, so I will use a something a little darker so they stand out a little more. And on the foreground layer, I will also add some light effects. We should add those maybe a little later on, because after we finish with all the other elements that we have here, because right now we cannot tell how to add those light effects, so we're gonna leave that for a little later on. So the next thing we want to do is add the light on the model, and also the skull over here, and the lights on the horns. So let's do that now. Next, we're gonna work on creating the lights on the skulls, well, on the skull and on the woman. We're gonna create this thing over here, and this thing over here, and this smoke coming out, or toxic smoke if you want. So let's start with the skull actually. So let's go inside the group of the model, because the skull it's there. And the skull is here, and now we're going to create a new layer on top, and on top right here. And let's name this light 1 skull. Great. Now let me check. Yeah, get the brush tool, and we have to use a size pretty much something like that, like the same size of the eye hole there, and use the hardness of about 30%. The color that we're going to use is F67400, this orange, and we're going to set this to linear dodge add. I'm going to make sure that I don't have the pen pressure on, or the transfer, and I'm going to click once there and once there, and we get this kind of look. If the color does not look like this, simply try and fine tune this until you get the color that you like. Of course, you don't have to use this color, but if you want to use this one, or after you paint it, you can press Ctrl-Command-U and just try different tones and try a color that you like. But the combination of this blue and yellow, and at the end we're going to create this contrast between yellow and this bluish or tone, I like it very much. So that's that for the light. Next, I'm going to add a texture, and for that I'm going to open a stock image that you have there on the stock folder, which is this one. And I'm going to show you how I applied this. I got the elliptical marquee tool, and I'm going to create a round selection like this. Like so. I'm going to put it halfway there. Just because I want to create a circular selection, I'm going to press Ctrl-Command-X. And I'm not going to save this, create a new document. You can put that texture right as it is. You don't have to do what I'm doing here, but I like to have this round. And I'm going to press Shift-Command-C, and get the width to double it, 3800, doesn't really matter. I'm going to move this to the side and then copy it, Ctrl-J. And just do this. Okay, and now flip it vertically. And now it's a perfect match. Okay, so I just wanted to have this, but you can drop the whole texture as it is right there, but I like it like this. So paste this on top. You can see it's really huge, so we have to make it way smaller. Like so. Actually, we could use just one of them and cover both. And let's see what that looks like. Of course, I only want this texture to be visible on top of this light 1 skull, on top of this. So I'm going to clip it, okay? I'm going to clip it like that. And I'm going to change the blend mode to color dodge. And voila, we have these particles flying around there. You can move it around and get the look you want. Probably make it smaller, adjust it a little bit so we have more points. And there we have that texture. That's how I got those particles inside of the eyes. Now, I did one other thing, which is, let me check my notes first. Yeah, it's those particles that you see flying around here. How I did that? Well, I created a new layer. And I named this particles. And I got the brush tool, and I tried to use, well, you can use a normal brush of just a hard with 100% hardness and really small. And let's see my brush settings. Yep. And just paint a few points like that around. But that's not what I did. What I did is I used a dual brush. Let me check the size. And 100%. Yeah, you can see I used something a little bigger. And something like this. Then open your brush settings and increase on the brush tip shape, increase the spacing, like so. Also activate scattering and increase it to the maximum. And on the shape dynamics, I'm gonna change the size jitter to something like that. And just to test it, I'm gonna paint a few ones over there. Yeah, it looks okay. But I want more spacing, so I'm gonna increase the spacing even more. And the scattering to the maximum. Yeah, that's okay. Both axes. Or, well, actually not. Let's uncheck both axes. And I'm going to use another color, something a little more orangey, not that yellow. Sorry, more yellow, not that orange. Something like that. And now we have to add some styles. I'm going to paint a few ones here, just so we have a few particles. And probably those smaller ones are too small. But anyways, so we have a few particles flying around here. If you want something more irregular and not that roundish, what you can do is you activate dual brush and get any of those brushes over here and change the size until you start to see that the brush changes, and you will create something a little less regular. Okay, now for the styles, I don't even remember which styles I use, so I'm gonna do it as I remember, more or less. So enter into the layer styles panel by double clicking the layer. And first of all, I think I added a drop shadow or outer glow. Let's try with drop shadow. Set the distance to 0 and increase the size a little bit. Change the blend mode to color dodge. And of course, we're gonna use a yellow tone like that. And size just a tiny little, well, about 16, I think that works. Next, let's try outer glow to intensify that effect. And again, color dodge, use this tone, and range, we're gonna use a smaller size, about 3 pixels. Here you have to play with the size and the size and the range. The higher the range, the more transition you have, and the less visible the effect will be. And the bigger the size, the softer the effect again. So you have to kind of play with that. Now, I think the effect of the particles look nice, but the inside of the particle itself is not looking nice at all. So what I would do is add a inner shadow. I'm gonna set the blend mode to color dodge again, and you can see how it really lights that up. And if it's too big, you can decrease the distance to 0 and play with the size until you get something that you like. I think that looks cool enough. And also you can play with the color. You don't need color here, just light. So just play with the strength of the light to get whatever you like. And click OK. And now what I'm gonna do is just delete everything because I don't like the particles themselves. I like the effect, but the particles, I don't like them. So the effect is there. Whatever we paint is gonna get that effect. So I'm gonna get that brush again and do it again. Remake that style, remake that brush. So to start with, size jitter, I don't like it. I don't want to have, the minimum diameter is too small, so I'm going to make it just a little bigger. Size variation, not that big. Pen pressure, I'm going to put it off. I want random sizes, not depending on how hard I press on the brush. Scattering is okay. Dual brush, probably get another one. Yeah, with this one you can see it better. You can see how the brushes change the shape depending on how I change the size over here. That's also affected by the blend mode. So if you try different blend modes, you get different. This one, the darken, maybe this one look more like a particle. Also, you can change the roundness, of course, to get different angles. And now if I paint again, you can see that now I'm gonna get really different results. And also I made the brush slightly smaller because I don't want to have that. Those particles were too big for my taste. And that's that. One other thing that you will notice inside of the eyes are these details. And that's really easy to make. Create a new layer. I'm still inside of the skull group, okay? Reset your brush, get a regular brush, soft brush, a little bigger, like so, but make sure it's really soft. And you get a color that is brighter than this. You get something yellow like so. We're gonna try with this. And we're gonna work with the with the elliptical marquee tool. Make selections like this. And now get the brush tool and gently paint like that. Without even touching that, okay? And I'm gonna hide the selection so you can see what I'm doing. And something like that, okay? I'm gonna create another selection. Right over there, get the brush and just paint on the side. One there, one there. Then make another selection, maybe a little smaller. Inside, like so, get the brush, make the brush just a little smaller so I have better control. And you can see when I deselect, we get this sort of a soft lines that look, I think they look nice. You can overlay them one on top of each other and paint with different tones, well, with different strengths of the brush, and make all sorts of lines like this. Like, I like the circular ones, but you can try different lines. You can see how it looks like before and after. You can even try blend modes, but I think it's not necessary. Soft light makes the whole thing a little softer. You can even try color dodge, but I think it's too much. So I'm gonna just leave them on normal. And that's how I created those effects. For the smoke, I used another technique, but let's create the lights on the eye of the woman. And then we can create the smoke for the eyes there. For the woman, I'm gonna create a new layer underneath or on top of the skull. It doesn't really matter. Let's create it underneath. Of course, I'm gonna group this. I'm gonna name this model eyes. That empty layer was not necessary, so first I'm gonna create a solid color, and I have the color code. It's FBA 40E. This is the color code that I use for the woman. Now, this covers the entire image. Obviously, we don't need it, so I'm gonna select the layer mask, press Ctrl-Command-I to invert it. And now we have to reveal that color only on the eyes. I'm gonna do it with the pen tool. I'm gonna set this to path instead of shape and just create a quick path. You can do it with the brush manually if you want, but I'm gonna do it with mouse. Right click, make selection, okay, and fill this with white. Make sure the foreground color is white, Alt backspace, and you fill that with white. It doesn't have to be really precise. Do your best though, but it doesn't need a very, very precise selection here. Make selection, okay, and fill with white. Okay, now we have the eyes here. If you want this to be a little softer, double click on the layer mask and increase the feather. This will soften that a little bit. But I made a mistake here I'm gonna correct this with the brush, with a very hard brush. Right over here, I should have included that part. Oops. So as you can see with the mouse, you can do it just as well. But I don't know, with the pen tool, it seems to me it's a better option. I don't know why. So I'm gonna soften this, as I said, with the mask, double click and increase that just to make things a little softer. Just a couple of pixels, 2 or 3 pixels, not more. And if you don't see, by the way, if you double click this and you don't see this, if you go into the refine mask, what you have to do is go to Photoshop preferences and go into tools. And here you have to uncheck the double click layer, mask launches, and mask select and mask workspace. If you uncheck that, when you double click, you will see this. Great, we're done with this. Let's add some styles to this. I'm gonna double click And since we have the layer mask, the styles will only be applied to this part, so not to the whole image. Okay, let's see the styles I have in a shadow first. I will use the color, I'm gonna give you the color code as well, FFBA01. So FFBA01, this is orange. Click OK. I'm gonna change the color to overlay, the blend mode, sorry. You can see how that looks like. And I'm gonna change the sizes here. The choke, I have it to 7% and the size to 13 pixels, but this may depend, well, this varies depending on your image. You can see what it does. Just adds a border, a really soft border, and makes it brighter. And now we add some outer glow. I'm gonna make this whole thing look brighter. With the outer glow, I'm gonna change the blend mode to screen. And the color code I'm gonna give you again, the color code that I used is F0670C. Okay, so this is the effect. You can see how it looks like. It adds this reddish outline on this shape, and we're gonna change the size and everything after we add the drop shadow. So add the drop shadow now, and here we're gonna make the whole thing light up. For the size, I think I use 130 pixels. The spread, I set it to 28%, and the blend mode, I think I set it to screen. I'm not sure. Let me take a look. Yeah, the blend mode, I set it to screen, and the color, something a little more orangey. I don't remember the color code, but something like this. You can copy this one if you want. And this is the effect that I got on the eyes. So we got this before and after. Maybe that drop shadow, it's too big. I'm gonna drop the size of it just a tiny bit and increase the opacity to 100% on all cases, inner shadow as well. Okay, so now we're done with the eyes. Now I wanted to add that texture that I added on the skull, so I'm gonna just copy it from there. This texture that I copied, I'm gonna put it right over here. I'm gonna drag it down. Oops, actually I have to drag it up because it's underneath. Sorry. Okay, so this texture, remember it was this one, on color dodge and clipped to that color fill, which I'm gonna name model light. So this texture sits on top, and we have these particles inside her eyes. I thought it looks nice, so actually I'm gonna make it smaller. I'm gonna make two. I thought it looks nice, that's why I put it, but if you don't like it, just leave that with that solid color, and that's it. So I'm gonna put it right over there, and oops, sorry, just bumped the microphone. Create a copy and move it there. Okay, and at 100% it looks like this. In this case, I did not add those flying particles, but you can add a few ones, but don't abuse it because it's not gonna look nice. Okay, now let's make that smoke around there. Not really realistic. Probably for the final art, I'm gonna change it or just drop the opacity because it's not looking really that nice, or at least not as nice as I expected. So yeah, we forgot to do something really important, which is softening the skin. We're gonna do that later after we're done with this. So let's continue with that smoke. I'm gonna create a new layer on top of everything, and I'm gonna name it smoke. Actually, we have to create several layers, but anyways. So the way I'm gonna show you the way I did it, and if you have some other technique, you can use it. Use a soft brush, really soft, and with an orangey tone like this. Actually, we're gonna paint a couple of colors. And honestly, I just painted something like that, and then I got a yellow tone. Actually, let's paint with something a little with lower opacity and see how that looks, because in my case I think it looked too not that good. Okay, that, and then yellow, probably the one on the middle, use a higher opacity value. And also I'm using a smaller brush and just paint something like that. Okay, next what I did is I Control T on it, and this loads this bounding box. Right click and choose warp. Maybe it's too many steps, but that's how I did it. There are other ways of doing it. Maybe with the liquify tool you get a better. The objective here with the warp tool, which is, I'm pretty sure it's not even the best way of doing it, is getting a sort of a flowing effect on it. Or I don't know why I used this, but I got something like that. And then I went to filter, oh god, it's awful, and go to filter, distort, and use the wave filter. And this is what gives it that flowing effect. The bad thing about this filter is that you cannot really see what you're doing. So basically I'm gonna decrease the scale a little bit and then increase the amplitude and the wavelength. And you can, I'm sure you're not seeing it on the video because I can barely see it on the screen myself. But your objective is to get a wavy thing here. I'm gonna click OK so you can see what I get. Okay, and then you go ahead and go to filter, blur, and blur it again. Gaussian blur, and you get something like it's too blurred, something like that. I'm pretty sure there are a lot better ways of doing this, and if you can comment and just tell me how you did it. One good way of doing it is using the liquify tool, because here we have that finger tool that allows us to warp things. I'm gonna zoom in, and I don't know why I'm seeing this. Show guide. I'm really not sure why I'm seeing this. I don't know how to deactivate it, because show backdrop. No, show mask. I don't want to see the mask. I don't want to see that either. So let me see opacity. Okay. Now I'm gonna drop the size a little bit, and with this, of course, you cannot do anything. The backdrop settings are preventing the preview from showing image changes. Okay, hide the backdrop. With this, it's probably a lot better because you can pretty much do whatever you want with this and just warp it however you want and get a sort of a thing like that. You can also use the finger tool, or I don't know how it's called. I'm gonna click OK. Yeah, this looks better. You can use this where it is. I almost never use it. The Smudge Tool, yeah. But for some reason, in my case, it works really slow on my computer. So just create something like that. I don't know. Try advanced blend modes, advanced blending settings. Sorry, here on the layer styles, using that blend if, and try to get something here. But I'm pretty sure it's not going to work as expected. So if you're not sure what to do, just leave it like that and drop the fill a little bit. And that's it. Also, you can try blend modes, reduce the fill, the layer styles. I'm just going to try it once with this and that's it, and just move on, because you've seen how I did this and it's not the point here. If you don't like it, just don't add that. Probably inner glow on color dodge, and this will light the whole thing up a little bit. And maybe screen will work better. I don't know. I'm going to leave it at the opacity that it was, and that's it. It's not looking really that good, but it's not looking that bad either. I don't know. This is how it looks in my case. It looks kind of weird, so I don't know. It's supposed to be sort of a toxic smoke or something. I don't know. Let's move on with the lighting of the horns. So let's find those right over here. Horns. Let's name the layer horns. And we have to add some styles to this. Let's try with inner shadow. From the top, we're gonna change this to multiply, and we're gonna use a dark tone. and we're gonna increase the distance, choke 0, and we're gonna make them soft. And now I'm gonna drop the opacity because it's too dark. Just darken them slightly from the top. And the next, we're gonna add the light. I'm gonna create a new layer on top, clip it, and I'm gonna name this Horn Light 1. And I'm pretty sure I used the color dodge blend mode, but let me check it because I know I used 2 layers. This one on color dodge and overlay. Okay, so I'm gonna paint the first lights. I'm gonna get the color dodge is really a strong blend mode, so you have to use really dark tones, and it also depends, of course, on the surface of where you're painting. In this case, it's pretty dark, so it's not going to be that affected. So I'm going to use something a little brighter just to see how it works. Soft brush, and just paint like that. I'm sure there will be people that will say, "Oh, this is not realistic. This thing is unnecessary. The light here is not casted by any source of light," but I like how it looks like. I had these 2 things here, but I don't know, I just liked how that looked, and I painted those lights, and that's it. If you don't like them, don't do them, don't paint them, but I like how they look like. Then create another one. I'm gonna name it Horn Light 2, and I'm gonna put this on overlay, and here we're gonna do something a little brighter and see how that looks. I'm gonna light things up here, but that it's too strong. So let's, yeah, okay, I like how that looks. And if you don't like how it looks like, just press Ctrl Command U, and you can change the hue, of course, to change the tone of what you're painting. That's not looking nice. Change the brightness, the lightness of it, or make it brighter or darker, okay? And there you have the light on the horns. Of course, I did this really quickly. You can also play with the blend if, as I said. And oops, let me zoom in at 100% so you can see it. On both Horn Light 1 and 2, you can use the blend if. Get something like that. Okay, and the same on Horn Light 1. This will help blend things a little better, and in my opinion, you get more natural results. Maybe on the first one, I increased this too much, like so. Okay, and this is how it looks like. Great, now I said that we forgot to paint the skin. Also, I should have painted some shadow there on the back here on the woman's body. So next we're gonna fix a few things. On the next video, I'm gonna soften the skin, add some more styles on the skull, and add a shadow there on the back, and also make the lips of the woman. Let's start by smoothing the skin of the model. So what I will do is select the model layer and press Option and click this eye icon. This will hide everything else. And I will create a new layer on top, and I'm gonna clip it. And I'm gonna get the mixer brush tool. This technique, I use it to soften the skin when I don't need to keep the texture. And I have to activate the option that says, first I'm going to clean the brush, and we have to activate the option that says clean brush after each stroke, not this one, this other one. So activate that one. I'm going to activate sample all layers because I want to get the texture from the layer underneath and put it in here. And we're going to change the settings here. Wet, probably I'm going to put it to 15, load to about everything to about 15 or 20, and the flow also really low to about 20%. So let's try with these numbers and see how that works. We need a soft brush, so I'm gonna select the brush from here, and or actually go to the brush preset and deactivate everything else. Or actually, I don't know, we just need a normal brush. But for some reason, sometimes depending on what brush you choose, it changes the tool. Let's see how this works. Yeah, good enough. You can see that if I paint here, it starts to smoothen the skin. Now make sure you follow the direction of the shadows and highlights, because in this case you can see you have to go down like so. If I go like this, it's gonna smudge that highlight into the shadow, which is not looking good. So short strokes and change the brush size according to the area that you're painting. Oops, see that? I touched the face too much. And that's it. I'm going to fast forward here because it's a repetitive task. And if your tool is too strong, just lower the numbers here and you will get different settings. I like to work with this settings because I can control the effect and I can paint only the amount that I want. And if I want more, I can just give another pass, and that's it. So I'm going to fast forward and we'll see you when I'm done. So when you're done with the skin, what we need to do next is desaturate it. I forgot to paint the nose. Get the brush tool again and just paint a little more right over here. Ooh. Okay, again. So add a hue saturation on top. Now clip it to the model, and actually you can unclip this. You can unclip the, let's name this smooth, and clip the hue saturation only to that smooth layer, and now desaturate it a little bit. Otherwise you would have to, not looking good. Let's clip everything back to how it was. So the smooth clipped to the model and the hue saturation clipped to both of them. And we have to desaturate it, but only the skin tone. So what you need to do is click on this icon over here and click on the skin and drag to the left. And this will create a selection down here, which we will use to desaturate the skin. I'm going to desaturate everything so I can see what I'm doing, and now restrict this only to my skin tones, moving this around and see where my skin tones are, right over there. And about -30, I think, will be enough. And now our model is a little white on the skin, okay? What else? Let me show you how I made the lips, because it's really easy and really nice. I'm going to create a hue saturation. I'm going to desaturate everything and create an inverted layer mask. And now I will paint back on the lips with a brush, hardness about 78% or something like that. Make sure you use a normal brush, not the mixer brush, and just paint over the lips like so. Something in terms of, actually I have the hardness to 0, but that's not a good option either. Okay, and what I'm going to do next is drop the lightness quite a lot, like so. And now I'm going to use, because I also lost contrast, I'm going to create a levels adjustment and copy this layer mask to the levels. With Alt, click on the layer mask and dragging it on top. Replace it, and now I will increase the contrast. You can see now it looks a lot better. Let's go back here and drop the lightness even more, and that's it. That's how I created the black lips with these two layers. You can see without the levels and with the levels. What else? Let's show the rest of the layers. Instead of doing it manually, right click choose hide show all layers, and then if you have to do it again, just right click again and choose show hide all layers again. Now, one other thing I forgot to add is the shadow of the skull. So what I will do is go and search for that layer. Right over here is on top of the model, which is okay. And I'm going to create a new layer underneath. This is the layer of the skull. So I'm going to create a new layer underneath inside its group, and I'm going to name it skull shadow. I'm going to get the brush, something really dark like so, and even darker. And with an opacity of 50 and flow maybe 20, I'm going to just paint a shadow right over there. And change the blend mode to multiply, maybe. Like so. I think that looks... Well, actually, let me do it again, because I don't like how it looked like. Great. Okay, that helps separate the skull a little more from the body. Okay, I think we're good to go. One other thing that we're left to do is go back to this foreground group that we created. This one with the stones, and add the light there. I'm going to double click and create an inner shadow. I'm going to set the size to 0 for now and just increase the distance. Change the color. Again, I use the same yellowish tone like the eyes. And the blend mode, I will set it to color dodge. So I'll have to use something a little brighter like so. And increase the size a little bit, so I get a softer look on that. And what else? Maybe I will, on the color overlay, I will use something darker. Oops, not that dark. And something a little more saturated. But if you make it darker, you'll have to use a brighter tone here on the color dodge to cope for the darker tone on those rocks. Now, one thing that I did here, and you will notice it if you take a look at the post PSD, is I use the same technique, of blurring. So what I will do is merge this group. You can either merge it or turn it into a smart object. I'm going to turn it into a smart object. So that I can edit it if I want later on. Now it's a regular layer. I'm going to filter, blur gallery, and I'm going to use the spin blur again. We have to use, oops, my mouse died. We have to use a big circle here. And yeah, really big one. And something really tall, like so. Make sure everything is inside. We only have things right here inside. If you make it wider, you will see that the shape changes there. Of course, we don't want 15 degrees. With 2 degrees is just enough. You don't need more. You can also add fill blur if you feel that the rocks are not well, if they're not blurred enough, you can add some fill blur as well. In my case, I will. And the spin blur. And now I'm gonna click OK, and it's gonna take a while for the filter to apply this, maybe even more. Click OK, and it's gonna take a while now to apply the filter. And the filter has been applied, and you can see how it looks like. It just gives a little bit of motion. Here I have more rocks. Okay, here we have more rocks. But anyways, oh, we forgot to add the wings. Let's do it now. Let's open our stock image. Actually, this is a pack of images that I created in Blender out of a 3D render. So open this stock that says wings, and let's open this one. I'm gonna use the same, what? PNG. Not a PNG file. I don't know what happens. Looks like the file is damaged or something. I'm going to bring the wings from here because looks like they are damaged. I'm going to put this 2 images inside of the folder for you to download. So I'm going to paste them right over here inside the model group. Of course, we have to paste these two images. You can see we have lots of layers now. That's why it's a good idea to name everything and group whatever you can. We're gonna put this right over here. Paste that. You can see they're pretty big because the other document that I have was a lot bigger than this one. Yeah, that looks a lot better now. Okay, so those are the wings. Now I blurred them, so I will go to filter, blur gallery. I'm gonna use a filter of 15 is too much. I don't want that much. About, let's say 6. Yeah, even less, 4. Let's try with 4. Okay. 4 is okay. 3 or 4 pixels, just to throw them a little out of focus and keep the focus on the model. I didn't even paint any kind of shadows, I think. Let me do it. Create a new layer and clip it. And with the brush, I'm going to set this layer to soft light. And I'm going to just sample one color from there and add some shadows right there, using something even darker. I have the opacity and flow lowered, so that's why you don't see a big change. And those shadows there on the wings, I think they look good enough. So this is my manipulation. It's not done yet. We still have the post-processing, but all the elements and the basic effects are here. So the only thing we have to do now is create the post-process and edit the whole thing in Camera Raw, and maybe add some textures, some particles and stuff like that. So we're done for now. Let's go with the post-processing. So we arrived at the final stage of creating this artwork, which is the post-production. Usually when I have a complex document with lots of layers and a big canvas that makes my computer run slow, usually what I do is I make this final step on a new document. So usually I would press Ctrl+Command+A to select the entire canvas, go to Edit, choose Copy Merged, and create a new document with Ctrl+Command+N, and just paste my final image here and continue from here, and I would close this document. Right now I'm not going to do it because I didn't save it for the entire length of the tutorial, so just in case I want to have it there. And usually I start building from here. Now compare this to the original that I have here, this was my final result. This one is too bright and is not as colorful as the other one. So I would start by first creating the levels. So you can see that even making it myself, I'm not always ending with the same things, even if I follow the same steps. So this is where you have to kind of judge yourself what you're doing, not just following what I do, just like a blind person. Just assess your manipulation and do what you have to do. So I'm going to add a curves, not a levels adjustment, and I'm just going to make the whole thing a little more contrasty and a little darker, like that. Next, I'm going to add the vibrance and just increase the vibrance a little bit, like so. And what else? Let me add the first adjustments. I'm going to add a color lookup. First, I'm going to use the horror blue, which comes with Photoshop, horror blue. And I'm going to drop the opacity of this to about 20%. Next, I'm going to add another color lookup, which what you should do is just click here, choose load 3D LUT, and inside of here you'll find a file called psdbox pa23. It's not here right now. I'm going to put it. I have it here on my list. By the way, you have to save this into the presets folder in Photoshop. There's a folder called 3D LUTs, and you should put it there if you want to have all of these presets here on the list. And I dropped this again back to 40%. And now I have the first color tones. Next, I'm going to add some light effects. I will create one layer on lighten, and I'm going to tell you why I do this. I'm going to get the brush tool. I want some of the light to kind of spill it or leak it here on the image. So I'm going to just sample that and click there. I'm using an opacity of 50% and flow, maybe I'll put it on 50 as well, and I'm using a really soft brush. So sample there. I'm just adding this where I see I have this kind of highlights. Maybe the flow to 30 was okay. Something like that. Only where you have like bright highlights, like so. And the reason why I'm not putting this on screen is because what happens is screen kind of multiplies the effect. Let me show you. If I set this to screen and I do the same thing, I sample from here, it's gonna make the whole thing brighter. If you'll see it a lot better if I set this to 100%. You see, it makes the whole thing not this piece of clothing, but the sky itself. It's gonna make it whiter as well, and I don't want that. But if I put it on lighten, even at 100%, you can see what happens. Again, click and see that it's not gonna make it as bright because it only brightens the color that is brighter than the one you sample. In other words, if I sample here and paint here, nothing is gonna happen right on that area because it's the same, has the same brighten. It only lights up areas that are darker than the one that you sampled. So in this case, not there, 50 and 20 or 50 and 30. Okay, so just do this a couple of clicks. This helps to create a better atmosphere on your image, I guess. We will make this effect a little stand out a little more when we use camera raw in just a second. Oh, that's not good. Okay, now next I'm going to get a new layer, another glow, this time on color dodge, and here we have to use really dark tones. I'm going to sample and drop the tones like so. This is just to, if you, oh yeah, I'm using the really low opacity and flow, so I can afford to paint without having to drop, without having to drop the tone of the color I sample. So just yeah, here we could use that technique of sampling a tone and painting here like so, like that. Okay, let's go back to the color dodge blend mode and just a couple of clicks here and there. Actually here I would use a different tone, but well, you know what, I'm not gonna do anything else. Maybe just sample one color from there, use a really dark tone, and just here on the horns a little bit to make those lights stand out a little more, and that's it. Now I'm not gonna do anything else. I will add some textures though, maybe here on the skull, just a couple of clicks. I'm gonna, not open bridge, I'm gonna place, oh no, Shift Command D, and let's go out of here. I'm gonna use some textures. You will see that here you will have a few ones. I will use this one only, but I included here this one, so you can use this in multiply blend mode. This if you want more particles, and this one as well, which you should use on screen to get use of the black and just have white particles around here. But I will use this one. I liked it. And I'm gonna rotate it like so, and of course I want to make it quite a bit bigger, like so, even bigger, like that. And I'll set this to screen. Now I still have to make it darker. Press Ctrl Command L and make it darker. Now I don't want this to be that visible, so I'll create a layer mask and get the elliptical marquee tool and delete the elliptical marquee tool, and just create a selection like this, sort of like when you create a vignette effect, and fill this with black because I don't want to see those particles in the middle. And now I'm going to soften this brush by double clicking and increase the feather to create a soft effect here on this layer mask. And now I'm going to drop the opacity. I just want to have a few particles here to fill the scene a little more. And you can use even more particles. I think I use some other. Yeah, I think I used this fire embers flying around here. Like so. Set it to screen. Ctrl Command L again to make this darker. And I actually think I use a really big. I made this image quite big and just added a few flying embers around here like so. Just you can see how that looks like even too much. I'm gonna drag it a little lower, and I'm also gonna blur this. I'm gonna go to filter, blur, and choose Gaussian blur, and just add a little blur. 3.5 is okay. And I'm going to saturate this because they're looking too unsaturated. You don't want to have this glowing red around it. Yeah, it looks a lot better. Okay, so we're ready to go into camera raw. You will see a big change after we come back. So after we go to camera raw, I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to merge everything onto this new layer. Shift Alt Command E, Shift Alt Control E on a PC. I'm going to turn this into Smart Object and go to Filter and choose Camera Raw. Now in here, I don't remember the settings, but I'm going to show you what I did more or less. First off, I'm going to start by creating a vignette effect because I really want to have a really dark side there on the bottom. I'm going to lower the midtone and increase the highlights to the maximum because I don't want to affect especially these lights over here. Not too much because that's going to darken the top part as well, which is not what I want. So I'm just going to lower it a little bit and then I'm going to use a linear gradient like so. And I'm going to reset everything, reset local corrections, and I'm going to drop the exposure slightly. And also the shadows. Not even that much because it's too much. Okay. Now, what else? Let's make some local corrections, local effects, not corrections. I'm going to zoom in a little more and I'm going to create a radial filter right over here. I'm going to reset and start building the effect again. First, I'm not going to touch the temperature. I'm going to increase the clarity and I'm going to reduce haze. This will create this sort of a mist around it, and I'm going to give it a color. Let's see how that looks if I give it a color. Yeah, maybe not touch the color. And that looks nice to me. What else? Those glows, as I said, you can create glows like so. Reset and just reduce the dehaze, and you can see. And then you can give it a color if you want something more bluish, or if you increase the whites or whatever. And I think this gives it a nice touch. But this is really up to you. Here on the horns, I want to create something else. I want to add more clarity. I'm going to reset and just increase the clarity and probably just a little bit the highlights. You can see how that looks like, and a bit the sharpness, where it is, sharpness right over here, and the saturation just a tiny bit. On the face, on the face I could add a new circle like this. I'm going to reset because I want to have different settings here. I will increase the clarity and also the sharpness. We should watch this at 100% so we can see a lot better what we're doing. The sharpness is too much like this. And I think we're done. I like how that looks so far. If you click the hand, you will go to the basic settings, which will affect the whole image. And I would probably increase the vibrance and the saturation and give everything a sort of a bluish tone. Not much, just -5. Hold it. Actually, let's leave it like it is and just use the split toning and see what we get. On the highlights, I want to have a touch of yellow, but not too much because you're going to see instantly a tint of yellow, so you don't want to add too much. And on the shadows, we do want to have this sort of a greenish tone. Again, not too much because we're going to use this here on the camera calibration. We're going to switch the, you can see here, you can switch the channels and get your preview. If you want your yellows to be a little more red, you can do that, or increase the saturation per channel. This is not what I want. Here is where we get that greenish tint on the image. And the yellows are too red, so okay. Here on the curves, I would probably go to the blue channel and add a little, just a tiny little blue, more of blue, and a bit of clarity on the whole image, and of course, some sharpening on the whole thing and detail. Okay, not exactly as the one that I had. The colors are not exactly the ones that I used, but I'm gonna click OK and you'll see a change anyways. You can see the before and after camera raw. Here, the colors that I have, let me go back to open, have a different tone and more glow of light and have this greenish tone on them. I think I also used the, I got this effect from, especially from the, I think from the split tone, not really sure. And also from the HSL. So here on the hue, you can change the blues to have this greenish tint, and you can saturate that. Then here on the saturation, you can saturate those aquas and you get that tone that we had. These reds, I don't like them that much. I want them to be red, not, oops, not the saturation here on the hue. I want them to be red, not purple. But anyways, you get the idea. So I'm gonna click OK. And you can see the change that I got. So this is how my final manipulation looks like. As I said, not exactly as this one because it took more time to do it, but definitely looks pretty similar, and I think it looks pretty nice. So I really would like to know your ideas about this. Tell me what you think about, and just post your version. You can use different color palettes. I use yellow and blue because I like how they look like, but you can use red or whatever. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you rate this tutorial so I know how much you liked it. And you leave your comments or whatever you want to ask me, you can go ahead and do it. Don't forget to use the hashtag PSDBox when you upload this to your website or whatever. And remember that if you're a premium member, you have an affiliate link which can help you earn a few dollars if you share my tutorials. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time.